Welcome everybody to another episode of Fins Nation. I'm your host, Louis Sung, and today we're going to be discussing the concept of the Miami Dolphins trading the 51st overall pick in the draft, either going up or down. What are the pros and cons of such a thing? What would the Miami Dolphins be getting if they ended up doing such a thing? We'll discuss what they should do, what I think they should do, and what they probably will do. But before that, really quick, just want to go ahead and mention that this show is brought to you by our friends and sponsors over at You Brake Wheel Fix. You Brake Wheel Fix is the complete automotive wheel solution. Have you ever parked too close to the sidewalk curb? You Brake Wheel Fix specializes in the repair of damaged wheels from bends, cracks, or curb rash. Or maybe your wheels are faded or peeling. You don't need to replace them, as You Brake Wheel Fix can refinish them to like new. Offering complete refinish options through powder coating, machining, and polishing, You Brake Wheel Fix is the answer to all of your wheel needs. And if you're just looking to give your ride a new look, maybe some Dolphins look, You Brake Wheel Fix also offers many car customizing options such as new custom wheels and tires from your favorite brands, performance upgrades, window tinting, and even suspension modifications. Located just south of Aventura, you can reach Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 or online at youbrakewheelfix.com. They are really active on all social media platforms at You Brake Wheel Fix, so shoot them a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter and get an estimate in just minutes. So again, you can reach Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 or online at youbrakewheelfix.com. Don't delay, go to You Brake Wheel Fix and start customizing your ride to show off your Dolphins fandom today. This show is also brought to you by PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is a revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues. Whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the playoffs are starting, MLB, one of each, it's up to you. And just choose whether your chosen player will get more or less than their projected stat. They give you free squares over there. They give you special Taco Tuesday promos. They give you Flex Friday specials where you can get your money back if you lose or multiply the amount of money you can normally win. So with offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up. So use the promo code FIVE, that's F-I-V-E, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Again, that's promo code FIVE, F-I-V-E. Go to PrizePicks.com, who we at 5 Reasons Sports are proud to have as our sponsors. So let's just take a minute and talk about this, shall we? So the Miami Dolphins, there have been reports that they may be looking for more picks in this upcoming draft. But at the same time, the only thing that I think of is that we've had this discussion pretty much every single year, right? The Dolphins always want more picks. Even when they have a lot of picks, they still want more picks. So in reality, let's just think about what the optics of this would look like. So currently the Miami Dolphins have the 51st overall pick, and that's the one that everybody's going to be looking at because that's the one that is the most likely to be able to draft really anybody of immediate impact. Now, if any of the later round picks end up doing something, then I'm sure everybody will jump for joy and say, hey, the Miami Dolphins found a diamond in the rough, which is great because finding a diamond in the rough is always a good thing. It's always nice when somebody unexpected steps up to the plate and ends up being really good. Kader Kohu being one. He wasn't even drafted, but he turned out to be a really good player. How about that? So props to Chris Greer on that one. But nevertheless, right now, Miami finds themselves with a difficult situation because as it stands right now, the Miami Dolphins have a total of 4 picks in this upcoming draft. They have a second rounder, which is the 51st overall. They have a third rounder, which is the 84th overall. And then they don't pick again until round 6, which is the 197th pick, and then round 7, pick 238. So there's going to be a lot of different players that are going to be picked between then and now. So I understand the concept. Of course, they want to be able to have more picks because as of right now, they only have a few options to choose from. With the second round pick, you can either choose the best offensive tackle on the board, which, as we discussed yesterday, most people want the Dolphins to do just to finally get rid of that right tackle situation once and for all. But after that, you have several positions that still need help. For instance, you could pick a guard, which I don't think they're going to do. You could pick a running back, which I know people want them to do, but I don't think they will do because I think the Dolphins feel like they're set at running back with the guys they have already. Or you could pick a tight end, which you could potentially do and still get a pretty decent player. Somebody like a Sam Laporta, I doubt he's going to fall all the way to the 3rd round, but nevertheless, there are some interesting players there that you might be able to get away with picking. One such prospect might be Penn State's Brenton Strange. The Miami Dolphins were there at Penn State's Pro Day, possibly to take a look at Strange himself. There may have been other players they were eyeballing, but Brenton Strange would be a decent fit for what the Miami Dolphins are trying to do. He's a good blocker, and it is possible that he does have some chops as a pass catcher. It would be very ironic if the Miami Dolphins ended up getting rid of Mike Gesicki, who was a Penn State standout himself, only to pick another one in Brenton Strange later on in the future. But I digress. Let's say the Miami Dolphins go ahead and do that, right? Let's say they go with somebody like a DeJuan Jones, who right now, if the Miami Dolphins do go offensive tackle, that's going to be my standing order right there. I don't care if he's a scheme fit or not. I'm picking him because I think he's better than everybody else. They could potentially have at 51 if they're going to go for offensive tackle. Now, let's say they go ahead and do that. If I'm the Miami Dolphins, if I can't get my hands on Sam Laporta, I'm just going to go ahead and pick a tight end, and I'm going to say it's going to be Brenton Strange, because once you've reached that point, there's not a whole lot of options you can choose from, right? So, second round pick, third round pick, or alternatively, if you really want to do this, you could trade down. So let's say the Miami Dolphins trade down, right? First of all, you need to have a team that is willing to trade down, which means that you have to find a team that is so hooked on a certain player that would be available at 51 that the Miami Dolphins are able to get some extra picks out of them to say, we really want this guy that you are standing in the way of. So who would that somebody be? What team needs players who would be available at 51? That's the first thing you have to examine. And once you figure that out, you have to decide, well, how far down are the Miami Dolphins going to trade? Because you're already standing at the 51st overall pick. That's pretty far into the second round at that point. It's very difficult for you to imagine how much further down they could go, or why they would want to go down that far to begin with. If you're looking for players who are going to give an immediate impact, why are you going to go out of your way to remove the possibility of getting that impact player by trading down where the talent, like it or not, usually this is how it works in the draft, the further down you go, the more you have to pick on projects instead of actually finding guys who you know for sure are going to be able to contribute. So that's why it doesn't really make sense to me right now why the Miami Dolphins would want to trade down in this draft. Unless, and this is something that you could look at it in this light, let's say the Miami Dolphins want to prep themselves to be in a really good position for 2024's draft, okay? Let's play this game. Let's say the Miami Dolphins decide to trade down in 2023 so they can maybe get another second-round pick in 2024 or a third-round pick in 2024. Now, I personally would not go ahead and do this. I would just keep the picks that we already have, or alternatively, you could trade a player for more picks. I know that they're open to trading Cedric Wilson. I'm sure that Emmanuel Ogbah is going to be on the trade block at some point, simply because the Miami Dolphins don't have a whole lot of space to keep everybody in the rotation. There's already so many talented players at those positions that it's very difficult to find room for everybody on that defense. I'm sure if anybody could do it, it is Vic Fangio, but still. So if the Miami Dolphins are looking to pick up more picks, I would definitely go that route instead of just trading down in this draft when you're already unsure of what kind of an impact player you're going to be getting. Now again, this is where the perspective comes in. The Miami Dolphins have already built a very talented roster. They've got a lot of really good talent that's already ready to go. So if they are convinced that Austin Jackson can regain that NFL Week 1 form against the New England Patriots, I doubt it. I would be very, very shocked if they really, truly feel like, oh yeah, that was the real Austin Jackson. I don't think it was. I think the real Austin Jackson is somebody who needs a lot of tutoring at a constant rate just to make sure he has the basics. He has all the athletic talent, that's true, but he doesn't seem to know how to play football, which is the main problem. But if they did want to go ahead and go that route, let's say that they are convinced that they don't really need that much more help. Because if you think about it, let's look at it from this perspective. Quarterback is set. You have Tua, who's going to be your starter. You brought in Mike White, who's going to be your backup. So if something bad happens to Tua for a few games, he can hold down the fort. Skylar Thompson is there too. Now, mind you, that's not the greatest solution. But if Skylar Thompson does have to come in, you at least know that he's played in the system before. So it's not the worst case scenario of the whole world. Like, it's not somebody who's just jumping off the street and saying, figure it out. Running back is pretty much set. Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, Savon Ahmed. Maybe Myles Gaskin sticks around one more year. I don't think he should, but it's possible that he might anyway. Wide receiver is definitely set. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. You added Braxton Berrios. Cedric Wilson might still be on the team. River Craycraft is there. So there's at least 5 guys you could choose from. And if you really need a 6th, you still have Braylon Sanders. Tight end, you did extend Durham Smythe. You brought in Eric Saubert. You may end up getting somebody else in free agency later down the line, or you may decide you want to stick with Tanner Connor as your tight end 3. That's a possibility as well. I don't think it's the best solution, but it is a solution nonetheless. And of course, the offensive line. Yes, offensive line. You have Teron Armstead at left tackle. You've got probably Liam Eichenberg projected at left guard. Connor Williams going to remain at center. Right guard is Robert Hunt. And then right tackle, okay, Austin Jackson or Kendall Lamb. It's not the best lineup I've ever seen, but it is a decent one if you manage to get Austin Jackson back to some level of decency. And then on defense, the defense is set. I've never seen such a stacked defense in the Miami Dolphins for quite some time. Zach Sealer and Christian Wilkins are the defensive tackles. Raekwon Davis is your backup. You've got on the eds, you have Bradley Chubb, you have Jalen Phillips, and they're going to make being a quarterback just living hell this year for anybody who wants to take them on. And if you really need the backup, you still have Emmanuel Ogbah there too. Linebacker, you brought in David Long Jr., who is going to be a fantastic player as long as he remains healthy. Jerome Baker is going to get an opportunity to shine again now that he has some help at that position. He's not by himself. And you still have role players in Duke Riley. He's there too. He's hanging around. And of course, the secondary. You have Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey. And then you have Javon Holland as safety. Brandon Jones is coming back. There's so much talent on defense. Where is the need, per se? Jason Sanders, maybe he comes back to form. I'm not holding my breath on that just yet, but we'll see if he manages to get back to being Pro Bowl kicker Jason Sanders. They went ahead and got another punter, another Pro Bowl punter at that, and they still have... should I even need to talk about long snapper? Does that really matter at this point? So there's not a whole lot of holes, per se. There's holes with depth, but the real glaring holes would be the right tackle position, because you don't trust Austin Jackson, and arguably the tight end position, but only because you don't think Durham Smythe is tight end 1 material. That doesn't mean he can't do a good job, because the role that he would play would require him to spend more time blocking anyway than going out for passes, so that would be what he's good at. So you could get by with Durham Smythe. The only real glaring hole is right tackle. But if you need a right tackle, and you need it badly enough, it makes absolutely no sense for the Miami Dolphins to trade down and lose out on a potentially good player like a DeJuan Jones to have to pick somebody instead who might also not end up being available, because as much as I've talked about Matthew Bergeron and Tyler Steen and those guys because they're projects, there are still some mock drafts that are showing that they're not even available for the Dolphins to pick in the first place. So they may not even make it to 51 because offensive tackles are just that much of a premium. So why are you going to sabotage yourself and trade down if you're not even sure you're going to be able to get the talent that you're looking for in the first place? So the only reason they would trade down in this draft, in my opinion at this point, is because they feel like their roster is already set and ready to go, which at right tackle anyway, I feel like is a naive position to take, but I can understand why they would take it. Now the opposite direction, what if they trade up? Now this, I feel like, would make a little bit more sense in both perspectives. Because if you feel like this Miami Dolphins roster is ready to go, and there's only 1 or 2 things left that really need to be plugged up, why wouldn't you trade up to get one of the premier players? Why wouldn't you maybe try to see if you can get into the first round and pick that one guy that you feel like would be the missing piece of the puzzle? Let's say they trade up. Let's say they get one of the top offensive tackles in this draft. Maybe they are able to fill the right tackle spot and immediately they just plug and play this dude and he's the guy. I don't think they're going to do that because I still think they want to give Austin Jackson the chance to prove himself. But it would make more sense if the Miami Dolphins were to trade up rather than down, because at least then you know for sure they feel like there's only one dude who's a missing piece of this puzzle. Anybody else that you're looking at, maybe they are evaluating differently. Maybe they're going against the grain with what all the scouts and what all the draft gurus are saying. But I feel like by trading down, they're just sabotaging themselves at this point, unless they're trying to load up for next year's draft and they already feel like the Miami Dolphins don't need any more help that's coming in this draft. And everybody else is just going to be a flyer to see what happens and see if maybe they can get lucky. So that's the philosophy to think about. We have this discussion every year. I know we do. Should the Dolphins trade up? Should the Dolphins trade down? Should the Dolphins stand pat? Me personally, if I'm the Miami Dolphins, I'm staying right here and I'm going to pick at 51. I'm going to make my third round pick, and then I'm just going to sit there and see what happens with the 6th and 7th rounds. Maybe you get lucky and you find an acorn. I don't think they will, because you can never assume that, but Chris Grier has managed to do it in the past. Or if necessary, the Miami Dolphins may trade a player, get more picks that way, and with that I would be absolutely fine with it, because there are some positions where they have some level of surplus. What do I think they will do? Honestly, I do think they will stand pat. I don't foresee the Dolphins trading down. I feel like they're going to look at this situation and be like, you know what? We've got our 4 picks. Let's use them, and let's try to go all in for the Super Bowl. The only thing I can actually see them doing, in my opinion, is trading up. But only because they feel like they need this one last dude, whoever that is, to finish the job and get this roster completely filled up. And if they decide to do that, I'm all for it. By all means, go get your guy if that's what you think it is. Because of the way that I'm looking at this roster, the way that I'm seeing all these players, I think the Miami Dolphins have a real shot at making a real playoff run, and even a Super Bowl run, if they manage to play their cards right. Tua stays healthy for the majority of the season. I don't see how anybody can stop this team. That's going to be it for this show. Thank you all so much for listening, as always. And as always, if you haven't already gone to check them out yet, go to You Break Wheel Fix. If you really need some help with your wheels, if you need to get them fixed from bends or cracks or curb rash, or if you want to just add some extra customizable options to your ride, you can get custom wheels, you can get performance upgrades, window tinting, suspension modifications. Make it look like a Dolphins car. Make it look like it's your car. You're going to be the guy who shows up at work and you're showing your Dolphins fandom every single place that you go to. Don't delay. Go to You Break Wheel Fix. The number to call is 305-748-0112, or you can go online at youbreakwheelfix.com. Start showing off your Dolphins fandom today. And if you haven't already, go to prizepicks.com. They're the revolutionary fantasy platform. You can pick up to 6 different players across all the leagues imaginable. You can even pick on fights. You can pick women's sports. There's pretty much no limit at this point to where you can go with Prize Picks. Go ahead and just use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and when you sign up using that promo code, if you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100 on their dime, and you can start playing using their promo funds and start winning some money today. That's going to be it for this show. We will see you all tomorrow for one more episode for this week for Fins Nation.